everybody, and welcome to the Wednesday edition of the Business Power Hour with Darren, Dimples, and the Music Man. Me. Hey, Dimps.
Hey, Mr. Music Man. How you doing this evening?
What's going on?
How are you?
Well, good. What's up? Two ladies. This is just a story. These two ladies at a network meeting came over to me, and he said, your show was really good, but we missed Dimple.
I'm absolutely convinced. I'm absolutely convinced that you got some kind of brain damage when you had that thing last year.
I'm telling you that, and he called.
It's not classy, but classy.
Seeing interviews by Darren and the Music Man. Ladies and gentlemen, Darren Siafe and Norman Wasserman.
Let's do this.
Yeah.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Wednesday Business Power Hour. Unlike the Tuesday, which was last night, today's Wednesday. So we are here tonight because we knew you wanted us to be back, right? Isn't that what you told me? That everybody was writing into us,
and they want us to be back. So much so that we'll be back tomorrow night.
Oh my God!
So it's a wonderful thing. So I'm not even going to ask you how your day was. Because I really don't.
Actually,
care.
I had a good day today.
Did you?
Yeah, I had some a nice surprise today.
What kind of surprise?
A new concert.
Okay.
Huge charity out here in Long Island.
Okay.
And we're going to be doing our Stevie Wonder show for them in October.
Excellent.
So that worked out pretty well, and we'll have more about that.
Good for you.
How was your day?
Busy.
Okay, so that takes care of that.
That's it. It was just busy.
So we'll just jump in. Should we give our guests a chance to, for the hour? Should we bring them in?
Yeah, we should bring them in, because they are here.
They look all grayed out. I mean, you look
That's
into
because they're in the green room.
No, then they'd be greened out.
They're all grayed out. It's
So
a gray room.
grayed out. So it's a gray room. So let's welcome to the table Mr. Joel Solomon and Miss Molly Singh. Hey, everybody.
Welcome, guys. How are you this evening?
Hey, Molly. I overheard some conversation before that you're not in New York, New Jersey, or Connecticut. Where are you from?
I'm in Atlanta right now.
Oh, cool.
Atlanta is awesome.
So here's the start of the evening question. How the heck did you two guys meet?
Joel, you want to take it?
Sure, Molly. We actually met at a conference called Infinite Possibilities.
Oh.
Infinite Possibilities is a conference that Mike Dooley does with his brother Andy every year. It's based on his New York Times bestselling book, Infinite Possibilities. And we were both certified and trained, and now we're trailblazers in the concepts of infinite possibilities. And so Molly and I met back in we actually were at the same conference in 2017 in Santa Fe, New Mexico, but we didn't actually meet then. We met back in 2018 when we both spoke at that conference in New Orleans.
Okay, so you met at this conference. You didn't know each other before. Joel, let's start with ladies first. Molly, what do you do with your life? What did you do before Infinite Possibilities?
So I had actually, I'm a project manager by background, and I am a university professor, adjunct professor for project management and business operations. So I was doing that, and then I went to the training and decided to give back and to become a speaker in the subsequent year in 2018, when Joel and I finally did meet, because he was also a speaker, and kind of took it from there. I started to write a book, and then I got into couples coaching, and that's how we met. Me talking about my couples coaching, and Joel talking about money management, financial freedom.
Did you grow up in Atlanta?
I grew up in Los Angeles, California.
Okay, so what brought you from Los Angeles to Atlanta?
I came by way of Seattle. I moved for a job, and then.
Okay, so how did you leave Los Angeles to go to Seattle to come to Atlanta?
So I moved from Los Angeles to go to Seattle for a job. I was working in the IT field. I was actually working for Washington Mutual back in the day, and doing IT for them, security. And then I met my husband in Seattle, and he got a job offer here in Atlanta, and so we moved out here.
Very, very nice. We have people that watch us from Seattle.
Yeah.
Is Brittany from Seattle?
She's from Washington. Close enough.
That's Washington.
Go along with the routine.
Okay, I'm sorry.
You bite into it.
Okay, we do have West Coast people that watch religiously. Brittany Anderson's out on the West Coast.
She'll be on here, I'm sure, in just a second.
I'm sure
she
she'll
never
be
misses
chirping
it.
up in a
She never
second.
misses it. Joel, where'd you grow up?
I grew up right where you are on Long Island, Massapequa.
Massapequa?
Massapequa.
Massapequa boy.
Very good. What did you do? How did your career start off?
Yeah, I was going to say, I actually tell people I lived in the state of New York my whole life, except for about a year and a half in Switzerland.
Wait, okay, so why did you go to Switzerland?
For a job.
No, better question. Why did you come back?
Yeah, that's a better question. The job brought me back, but yeah. So my career has been all in finance. I started my career as an actuary. I worked as a credit analyst. I worked as an equity analyst. Then I managed money for Citigroup. I had my own hedge fund, and I shut it down about 5 years ago in 2016 to be a coach, be a prosperity coach, a money mindset and investment coach. And to be clear, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not a financial planner. All I do is teach.
So, okay. So you were a finance guy before, right? Were you a financial advisor?
No.
No. So what did you do in finance?
So I managed a hedge fund, my own hedge fund.
All right.
And I managed a hedge fund, a $700 million fund for Citi. And I was an actuary, equity analyst, stock analyst, and a bond analyst.
Right. And Molly, you have the therapy piece of it. So how did you guys come together? Being on Long Island and in Atlanta, Seattle, Los Angeles, and all these other places.
Very important question. Does Jarlsberg taste the same in Switzerland as it does here in the States?
Does what taste the same?
Jarlsberg, Swiss cheese.
Cheese.
No? Yeah.
The cheese, everything's better in Switzerland. The cheese, the chocolate.
If you notice how he turns his head and looks strange at me a lot of the time, it's because he does.
He's strange. So, you can't, he has some strange stuff. So
let's talk about how we got together for the book.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Do you want to take it, Molly? You want me to?
You both take a shot at it.
We have a really great, the Infinite Possibilities community is a really great, supportive, open community. And Joel and I just started talking at the conference just about what he's doing, what I'm doing. I like to travel a lot. And I was in New York, and so I knew Joel was in New York. So we met up and we started talking even more. We found out that we both are writers. I mean, we both kind of knew this, but that we were talking about, I was coaching and teaching about love, and he was coaching and teaching about financial freedom. And then, Joel, I'm going to let you take it from your epiphany.
Yeah, so I was actually jogging one morning. A client of mine had been talking to me. He had really we've been working with him on his money mindset, but we started talking about budgeting, and I asked him I told him that we should probably have a session with him and his wife. And he said, no, I don't talk about money with her. I'm the money guy. She just leaves it all to me. And I just got this bad feeling in my stomach. And when I was jogging the next morning, I realized that this is not the way, and this is how most couples do it. I believe most partners don't communicate around money. And I realized that if Molly and I came together and wrote a book about money and relationships, that we could actually reduce the amount of divorce in the United States and maybe globally by improving the communication in relationships about money. So I reached out to Molly, and we decided to first work on a workshop, work on putting a webinar together, and that morphed into this book, Infinite Love and Money.
So, Molly, from your perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
You do a lot of relationship coaching and that type of stuff. Is money the number one issue with couples?
Sure. I mean, it depends on which study you look at, but statistically, every study says it's either the number one or the number two issue. So absolutely. And money is tied to so many emotions. And if you ask, I think the Gottmans, renowned relationship experts, they actually put it out and asked what kind of emotions come up around money. And I think they came up with 200 independently different words that described how people felt about money. So that's pretty intense.
Well, wait a second. So basically what you're saying is there's such a huge array of emotions around money that it really does affect every relationship that you have.
Absolutely every relationship that you have.
Question: which is more effective to a marriage, affects a marriage, illness or money?
I mean, money's tied to illness as well, right?
Sometimes.
I'd say more often than not, it's money.
All right. So during COVID,
Mm-hmm.
all right, it was the money.
Sure. We're talking about a grand scale illness, and it's still about the money. Did both people stay employed? Did they both stay busy? Were they both able to still maintain whatever semblance of the lifestyle they're used to? Did they have to give anything up? Yeah, those are all about finances. And all about illness too. Could someone not work because they were sick? What happens then?
Of course.
Did you see an increase in troubled relationships during COVID?
I mean, I will say that personally, I didn't see it within my own group, but what we did see statistically was we expected more babies to come out, and we actually don't have as many babies. So intimacy definitely fell.
So intimacy, wait, okay. Lack of babies. So it was actually a decrease
of intimacy.
Lack of intimacy.
And all around trust, and not believing that people had money to raise their children because they didn't know. So sure, there was absolutely a drop in birth rate due to COVID.
Was there an increase in abortion as well? Because
I don't know that statistic.
I heard on the news that there was a big problem regarding marriages and living together because of the money situation.
Yes. So forced intimacy, even in couples that are going strong and doing really, really well, when you're forced into a situation where you're both in the same house, not doing the routines that you're used to because of lockdown, you're not going out as often, you're not separating a little bit away, because I have worked from home for over 10 years. My husband has always either worked outside of the home or traveled. And without that separation, there's going to be some level of adjustment that has to happen. And some couples did it well, and many couples did not do it so well.
Joel, did you find that the same way?
Definitely. I would say I'm a statistician, as you can tell. Right. A lot of math in my background. I actually majored in math and statistics. So I go by that. But I will tell you, just from my community that I know, there were a lot more people that were separating, couples that were separating and divorcing. It's not statistically significant, but just in my community, I heard about a number of couples that this happened. And I think a lot of it comes down to the money issues that Molly already talked about, which is, if you're all of a sudden the couple is only earning one income instead of two, or maybe it's reduced income, you have to really consider, what we talk about in chapter 15, which is, where's my cash going? People don't. Budgeting, or budget, is a 4-letter word to most people around the globe, and especially in the US. And so to get people to budget, to cut back, it's just difficult. And usually in a lot of partnerships, we talk about in the book the 7 money personality types. usually in a relationship, you don't have two same money personality types. It's likely that you have, you know, we have the acronym in the book is Sugar Pie. So S stands for splurgers, U stands for the unconscious ones.
I want to get into that in a second,
Okay.
John. Here's the question I have, is that between the two of you, and I guess that was kind of why you came together, is Molly saw the relationships and the struggle with the relationships, and you being the expert on, hey, I want to show you how to save money and how to really get the most out of each thing. Now, one of the things I did, I have not read the book yet, but I did read some stuff on it. But it sounds like the premise of the book is how to get it to be a true partnership in everything, not just the money, but in communication and all of those things, right? I mean, the biggest problem we have in our lives in all of our relationships is communication.
Yes, actually, so this is how Joel and I came together, because my first book, which is Infinitely Loving, it's actually a workbook that talks about the full array of everything about your childhood, how you feel about this, how your childhood affects your today. And we took that and basically adjusted it for financial aspects of a relationship. Mm-hmm. So yes, we absolutely took that stance of saying, hey, what is your first money memory? How does that affect you today? Or what was your dream as a child? Did you want to be a superhero? How can you honor that dream today? And finding ways to do this in every aspect, but specifically in this book together that Joel and I wrote together, we did it for financial terms.
Okay, so you've written a book before, Molly.
Yes.
You've done this before. Joel, have you written any other books before this?
Yes, actually, over my head here is my first two books, Mindful Money Management and The 9 Money Rules Millionaires Use.
Okay. And okay, so you've written financial books before. You've written relationships books before.
Right.
And so how did you guys meet?
Meet to write the book, or?
How did you meet? How did you guys get to know each other? You know, you guys live in different parts of the world and different parts of the country. Seminar. I mean, you went to a seminar, and is that where you first met? And then from that, what made you say, hey, you know what, let's get together and write a book?
Well, as I mentioned before, we at the seminar, our community, this particular community is incredibly supportive and incredibly open and generous and with time and energy, and it just makes you feel good. And so when I had this opportunity to go to New York, I was visiting New York, and Joel was there. It was, for me, it was a no-brainer to say, hey, Joel, let's get together and have a drink. And so we just hung out together and chatted some more, and our friendship continued to build from there.
Now, you mentioned, Joel, that there are 7 different personality types. You mentioned as you were running through the park, a client called you, you bumped into him, whatever it may be, and he says, I don't talk to my wife about money. Okay, I'm the money guy, she does what she does, yada, yada. Right. That's pretty common, isn't it?
Yeah, so that's what I was trying to say is, okay, so I was jogging, and my client was saying to me, Joel, this is how I manage the money in the relationship. And I was like, this is probably pretty common, and it's not helpful. So that's when I reached out to Molly and I said, oh my God, we need to come together to at least start with workshops. And then that, as I said, that morphed into this book, because I realized that most couples don't communicate about money. It's one of the partners is managing the money, the other has no idea, which is definitely not helpful. It can lead to conflict and differences and potentially a divorce. And
okay. Now there are 6 other types. Are any of them similar? Do they overlap at all with Molly in what she does? Can you explain to the audience what the other 6 types are? And either one of you, it doesn't matter which one.
Yeah, so so I was saying the acronym to remember the 7 money personality types is Sugar Pie, And what we say in the book, before I get into them, is you may have one primary or secondary or tertiary money personality type, but it changes over time. They change in different circumstances. And so what we say is the money personality type is not permanent. And as you grow older, you may go from single to married to divorced. In different circumstances, you act differently. And so, but it's good to know where you are today and then take the survey again. We have a survey in the book, by the way, for the 7 money personality types. It takes a few minutes and then you'll know which one you are. So let me explain the 7. So S stands for in Sugar Pie stands for splurgers. U is for the unconscious ones. G is for greedy. A is for the accumulators, also known as the savers. So that's sugar. Then the pie, P stands for protectionists. I stands for investors. And E stands for the egotists.
Okay. So.
Okay, I'm taking a step out here.
Yeah,
You go.
So
right.
if I may add, what we do in the book is we do identify the personality traits. We identify what the antidotes to those personality traits, like what you can do to quote unquote save yourself or change. We also identify the benefits for each one of them and how to incorporate those benefits. So as Joel was saying earlier, sure, it's in this moment, the test or the assessment for yourself is in this moment, but we do honor what is good about it and give you advice on how to find balance.
Okay. So I got a question because you said some names or you get some labels that I've never heard of.
Yeah.
Right. So these labels, where did you come up with these labels? Now, splurgers and some of these other ones, they make sense. You've heard them before and things like that. But when you look at
unconsciousness.
Well, the unconsciousness. What is that about?
So
unconscious myself.
Well, he's usually unconscious.
I'm unconscious.
So, by the way, what Molly talked about is in Appendix 2 of the book. We have a grid which shows, the money personality type, the attributes, how you can change, our proposal, how to change, and the benefits of each one. But the unconscious one is, they have their head in the sand, right? They're not interested. They don't look at their accounts. They're not interested in knowing. The premise is all fear. Right? They're scared about what they're going to find when they look at their accounts, so they don't look. Now, we actually say the benefit of that is it could be a benefit to not look at an account if every time you look at the account, you get intense fear, depression, you're really scared, so don't look at them every day, or maybe have your partner look at it every other day. But there are benefits. Yes, no, I'm sorry.
Then you have a fight with your partner. And then we got to call Molly.
We do go over conflict and resolution in the book as well. So we do address that. And I will say that while the labels, as you said, are they're controversial and they're a little pointed, but I think the point of it was to, or I know the point of it was to find a way for you to identify and say, yeah, I do splurge. For you to take that moment and be honest with yourself when you do the assessment and say, yes, I am a splurger, or yes, I can sometimes be very unconscious. And as Joel mentioned, oftentimes there will be a secondary or tertiary personality type that's brimming inside of you.
Have you ever run into somebody who thinks they're one thing when they're actually something else?
Yeah, me.
Okay, so how so?
So I tend to think that I am more protectionist than I am.
Okay.
So
how do you know? Well, okay, so you think you're a protectionist.
I think I'm more protectionist than I am. Mm-hmm.
All right, and why or how did you identify that you're not as much of a protectionist as you thought you were?
And who are you protecting?
I'm protecting the finances. I'm not splurging as much as I would, but Joel can tell you I splurge just as much. And Joel came up with this great test, assessment test. So we do ask that if you want to self-assess, we've given you the descriptions. If you prefer to take a test, Joel's created a test, and the test is in the book. So when I do the test, sorry?
Does your husband splurge?
On me.
On you. which is what you don't have to do. Right, yes. Yeah. So let me ask you this. Mm-hmm. What is the most common combination of people, splurgers and, protectionists, or, what do you typically find when you start working with a couple?
Yeah, I can go first, Molly. So I found, at least the people I'm coaching, they've been savers and unconscious ones, or savers and splurgers, or investors and splurgers, and investors and savers. Those are the most common ones I found.
Okay, so basically, all right, and that kind of makes sense, right? You always have, the yin and the yang, for lack of a better term. You got the opposites who attract. You got one person who is sitting there going, no, I don't want to spend a dime. And the other person going, don't worry about it. Let's just go out and have some fun. And let's just go and enjoy life right now. And the other person's worried about tomorrow and not today.
Now, the accumulator, does he or she pay the bills, or just accumulates the money, or accumulates the bills? What do they do?
In my experience, the accumulator accumulates the stuff.
What stuff?
Any stuff.
Luxury items?
Luxury items, unnecessary items.
You're not talking about saving of money.
No, that's a protectionist.
Wealth. You're talking about the one who has the most when they die wins.
Most stuff, yes.
Stuff. That's what it was.
So the difference between a protectionist and an accumulator is buying stuff, right? They're buying the big house, they're buying the fancy car,
things they don't need.
They're buying the boats, they're buying the motorcycles, they're buying all kinds of crazy stuff. What?
The boats, the horses?
I don't have boats. I don't have horses. Don't listen to anything he says. He makes this stuff up all the time, right? So it like Norm said, it's, hey, look at me, I have all this stuff. Where the protectionist is like, I don't want to spend the money, I want to save it.
Yeah.
Right?
In fact,
what's the difference? What's the difference between that and a splurger? An accumulator and a splurger?
Joel, you answer that one.
So the splurger is all about the luxury items. The accumulator is really more on the saving side rather than the luxury item spending.
So what would you consider yourself? In fact, don't even tell us that yet. Hold that one, because we're going to take a commercial break. And when we come back, Joel is going to let it on us on which one he happens to be.
We'll be right back right after these words.
Right back.
Pachera aquata, also known as the money tree, is a tree that flourishes in the tropical rainforest. Unlike other trees, it depends on 5 separate trunks to prosper. each one bringing its own share of water and nutrients to the leaves. Like the money tree, your business has many different trunks that need your attention. Sales, marketing, finance, operations, and culture. Fail to cultivate any one of these and the whole tree collapses. I understand this better than anyone else, which is why I developed My Prosperity Tree, a program designed to address all of these areas, not just one or two. We help you identify who you are as a company, define your direction, and assist with developing the systems that will enable you to scale your business the most efficient and effective way, allowing your company to bloom into your own prosperity tree. So plant your tree today by visiting myprosperitytree.com or call us at 844-987-CBMS. That's 844-987-2267.
Welcome back, everybody. And for a second, I thought Molly disappeared.
Yeah, Molly. I think Molly did disappear. What happened, Molly?
I don't know. I think the connection went out and it came back right away. So.
All right. So we're glad you're back.
Okay, welcome back, the two of you.
So before the break, right, we were talking about all this neat stuff and all these different combinations and that. And Norm had a very good question, which he's going to restate now, so Joel can then answer.
Oh, got it. Okay, Joel, which one are you? Are you a saver? I'm sorry, an accumulator? Are you unconscious? Are you an investor?
He's unconscious.
Absolutely.
So again, sometimes you have primary, secondary, and tertiary types. So at least when I took the survey, and by the way, if anybody wants to take the survey, they can take it right now. If they text to the number 66866 ILM for Infinite Love and Money, you'll get the money personality type survey. So my primary money personality type is investor. Some may say that's obvious. And the second, this tertiary, which is like I think they're tied. I think I had 16 instances of investor and 16 of the accumulator.
Excuse me.
So wait. So you had 16 instances?
Yeah, so when you do the survey,
test, you're just not coming out and saying, Norm, you're unconscious. You're saying, Norm, your primary is unconscious and your secondary is surplus, and and the next one after that. So this test really doesn't just say black or white. There's a lot of grays in between.
Absolutely, and basically what you're doing is you're answering adjectives to figure out what best suits you, and then you add up all the number of I's for investor or U for unconscious one, and whatever the largest number is, that's the primary, and the second would be the secondary.
How do you know that this test is legit to everybody? In other words, is it a generic test that people can just take and you'll have a ratio or a score and that determines what it is? Okay.
Yeah, it's just the highest number of letters that, of the U's. Yeah,
okay.
we've done a statistical analysis over 30 years, and we did the regression analysis and the hypothesis testing to determine that this test is the most accurate of any money personality test out there.
What are your spouses?
Just kidding.
What are your spouses? What's your spouse? What's your spouse, Molly?
My spouse, well, I handle the books, so I do all the bills and the taxes and everything. So I'd say he's the trusting one. He splurges, but he's also an investor.
Well, we discussed the fact that he splurges because it's on you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I have a hard time.
He goes to invest, he plays the market, makes investments.
Yeah, his preference is investing, yes.
And Joel, your wife?
I am single.
Oh, let's see. Was that a money problem?
Actually, believe it or not, it was not a money problem.
Oh, good. I'm sorry, but I've been there, done that. He's been there, done that.
I feel your pain. So, the book talks about understanding and loving your partner more deeply.
Yes.
Right? So, okay, we take this test.
Yeah.
And do you ever get people go, it's a bunch of hooey?
Sure. Sure, but I've been there too, and in fact, there is a parable that weaves through almost every chapter. The beginning of every chapter, there's a parable, and that parable is the story. It's a couple in conflict, and they're in their divorce proceedings, and it's all about money. Everything is about money, and
Yep.
the sad thing is, it's 100% true, and it is 100% my ex-husband.
Mm-hmm. You've been through it too.
Oh, you got one also.
I've been through it too.
Now, isn't that interesting? There's 4 of us that are here.
Mm-hmm.
All 4 of us have been through that. So now have the percentages around the country increased, not just over the last year, but let's go with the last 10 years. Has divorce really increased over 10 years, and how much?
So that's an interesting question. So I'm going to let you know that.
I'm sorry, Molly.
It's an internal
we
thing.
do a thing. Whenever we say that's a good question, then we do a.
You see, you shouldn't have said it was interesting. You should have said it was good. Like say that's a good question.
That's a good question.
No,
okay,
no.
here you go. We'll just show them by example.
Because you if
All right, I'll do it with you. Ready? Ready? I'll do it with you.
All right,
way to go.
There you go. So the interesting question comes with no-fault divorces came around in the 70s, where women could actually apply for divorce. But before then, women couldn't apply for divorce. And that's when we saw an increase to about 50%. It has actually tapered off to about 40. And it's in the 40s right now.
That's still a lot.
It's still a lot. Absolutely. 100%. I am one of those statistics. In fact, I'm 2 of those statistics. So twice divorced. 3 times the term.
Well, I'm number 3.
Yep. 3 times the term. But before I got married, I wanted to know what I was getting into. And the next relationship was going to be good. So I studied relationships, and I went to the best relationship experts that I could find, which are the Gottmans. And I became
the Gottmans. What is that?
John and Julie Gottman, they are based out of Seattle, Washington, as I was based out of there too. But they have a whole, they call it a love lab, where they've studied couples for 45 years, where they test couples in conflict. Right after conflict, they will test your urine, your body temperature. They'll test you for heart rate.
We're going to a doctor now?
We're going to base our divorce on my urine?
I mean, they studied conflict and what conflict does to a couple.
Okay.
So yes, I basically said, I'm going to study with doctors and find out what they know about relationships.
If I'm going to get a divorce, my urine is going to burn.
Right.
I know that, but that's
so
I wanted to study good
you're
relationships.
taking it from a different level. It's just not the emotional level of what we go through, but also the biological effects.
Correct.
Of what's happening. So now your book talks, like, again, I haven't had the opportunity to read it yet, and I'm actually looking forward to it.
Yeah.
But in everything I read about it, it all talks about understanding not only your partner but money, and how money affects everything that goes around, right? Yeah. So if somebody wants to get your book, where can they get it?
Oh, it's available on Amazon, Infinite Love and Money.
Okay. And you can get it on Amazon. Is there anywhere else? Can you get it on, was it all those other ones?
On the website?
You can get it on my website as well. Yep. If anybody wants a personalized signed copy from us, they can get it on it's a little bit less expensive. You can get it on my website, salamour.com. That's SALAURMOR.com.
Now, if people want to reach you, if they want to take your test, if they want to be involved and hire you guys, how do they reach you that way?
So they can reach on Joel's website, as he mentioned, or they can reach me on my website. That's mollysingh.com, MOLLIESINGH.com. So they can reach either one of us and arrive at both of us.
Yeah, we actually giving 30 minutes free of joint coaching to anyone who comes to us.
Okay, that was my next question. we got to get the cough button going again with him, because
I
every
have
show he starts
allergies.
coughing.
I got terrible allergies.
No, this is all year round. It has nothing to do with the allergies.
I'm allergic to you. That's what it is.
Oh, is that what it is? So you guys have been talking about the coaching. So you guys do relationship coaching from a financial aspect or around the book. Do you do it together, or do you do coaching separately, or is it both?
Hold that for a second. If anybody wants to call in and has a question and they're having a marital problem or a business problem, there's the number on the screen, 631-619-7500, 631-619-7500. Okay.
We do both. Joel, if someone wants financial freedom expertise alone, you can go to Joel. You want couples work, you can definitely come to me. Couples or love work. I work well with individuals as well, looking for love. And if you want us both, you can have us both as well.
You can do a joint session.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And by the way, in the book, each chapter has exercises to go through. You can, if you and your partner can read the book together and go through exercises throughout the book, we find that way it's an interactive book. It's geared to what we're eventually going to do is workshops, courses based on this book, and it's already set out for you, right? So it's really easy to read and make this an interactive discussion with your partner.
What do you do when somebody refuses to participate in a couple situation, and one of them refuses to do what is suggested? Is the handwriting on the wall?
Well, no. I mean, I don't think so. I think you both have to come to a decision together, and you have to decide together that this is your course of action.
Well, that's what I'm saying. One person refuses to do that. So, in my case, when I got the book, that was the reason. Because one of us refused to partake in what the therapist and such was doing and suggesting to us.
So I'd argue that your partner.
She was right. No, that's what she was right. She refused. So you got that right.
Okay. I'd argue that she didn't agree to the course of action. What we suggest in the book, and what I always suggest, is when you come together to make a decision. So say my husband and I have made this decision, we're going to go to therapy. For whatever reason it is, we are going to go to therapy. It now becomes a joint decision. Period. It's not, I did it for you, he did it for me. None of that. It is our decision.
Yeah, but
language now changes.
But did you ever, and I'm sure, because there's always an exception to the rule, do you ever get a spouse to just say, yeah, I'll go along with it, but they're not vested in doing it?
Right.
Of course you do. You get someone who's not vested, and that's usually when the decision is there. If they're not vested in working, even if I'm facilitating the discussion. So the book is an entire facilitation, as opposed to Joel and I saying, this is what you should do, this is who you should be. We say, have the discussion with each other and decide together in every one of the exercises Joel mentioned. But you make the decision together. And if one person's taking that, then the other person is letting the person take it. So for example, if I've made a decision on a financial decision between my husband and I, he's either participating in it or trusting that, yes, this is our decision. And when one person, refuses to go along, as your experience was, then they're not actually invested in it. And you have to ask. I go back to have the discussion. Always have the discussion. Tell someone how you're feeling about their actions, and then ask them for what you need.
Let me ask you, because a lot of times when all of us have been through it.
Yeah.
And usually we end up in, working on these things because of a lack of trust.
Right.
So how do you guys address rebuilding the trust to actually get people to be vested in doing this.
And also, is there financial trust as well as emotional trust?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You can have financial infidelity, and we address that as well in the book. Absolutely. Someone can definitely be hiding what they're spending, and not a planned hide. I think Joel discusses in the book, he used to have a separate fund for surprising his wife. But it could just be that you're not telling somebody about your splurges. That's pretty bad.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
or if you actually hide accounts, like there are instances that I've coached people where they said, "No, I'm purposely hiding accounts because I don't want the spouse to know. I don't
Right.
want."
Planning to do something that they don't want to let out of the bag yet.
Right.
Right.
Or right.
Or
they're
it could
not
just
telling
be,
people.
or it could be like one example I had where this particular client had credit card debt and didn't want the spouse to know. So they set up a separate account to pay off the credit card debt. And the partner didn't know about the credit card debt and didn't know that that partner had to pay off the credit card debt.
well, a friend of mine about a year and a half ago, it was a very similar situation. He found out his wife had all this credit card debt that if he would have known about it, it wouldn't have been a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
But she was hiding the credit cards and the spending. And the next thing you know, he's getting phone calls from the credit card companies saying, this credit card's past due and that credit card's past due. And because it got so out of hand that she didn't have enough money to pay it, but she wouldn't tell him about it. And financially, it wouldn't have made a difference. He would have, taken care of it. But that destroyed the relationship because now it was like, okay, what else is she hiding from me?
Right.
And it became a snowball effect down the road. That's why I asked the question is, how do you rebuild that trust? Because once that trust is gone, it's really hard to repair that.
It is really hard to repair that. Any lack of trust, any misstep in that way is very difficult. But it's not impossible to rebuild. Just like anything else, it happens little by little, slowly by slowly, and you just take that moment and say, okay, let's get on the same page and let's be honest and open, and you just lay everything out. But I would venture to say that the woman in your scenario, she had her own insecurities and her own lack of trust to be able to come to her husband to say, I've done this.
Right.
Right.
And she was afraid to tell him based upon the response that you probably would have gotten from him, or why are you doing this and why are you doing that?
No, I mean, look, I can tell you this because I'm their accountant.
HIPAA.
Right. No, it's no HIPAA. It's not medical.
It's HIPAA. Accounting.
It was, she had credit card accounts and she had these things.
Yeah.
And he made plenty of money, and that wouldn't have been an issue, but it seemed like something else was going on that
Probably
she was hiding.
And that's exactly it. Something else was going on. And
Right.
that would be the thing to get to, is what else was actually happening.
Right.
Yeah, I think we talk about this in the book, the why behind the why, right?
Yeah.
So she was hiding credit card debt, but what was the why behind the hiding?
Why was he doing it?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And and generally it's back to the emotions, and there's fear and there's worry behind the action, right? The spouse, the partner is worried about the reaction that's going to come from their partner. They don't have faith that everything's going to be fine if they completely open up all the information to the partner. And that's the real issue, is the fear.
Does the same thing happen in the financial side of things? I would imagine so.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. All the time.
What's
It's
the
called
craziest
financial
story?
infidelity.
What's the craziest story either one of you can tell us without mentioning names?
All right. I have a client who was stashing money away. The man was stashing money away weekly, and basically lying to his wife about how much he made. And and in order to eventually leave her, and he did.
How much did he acquire?
I don't know. It was probably close. It was thousands of dollars.
So basically, he was telling his wife he was making
X.
He was making
Right.
100,000 when he was making 150, and he
Right.
was banking the difference in order to get away from her.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Married her for the green card.
He
was waiting for the green card to
idiot.
come
So
in.
What was that?
he married her for the green
For
card.
the green
So in
card.
other words, he was an alien who needed to marry somebody in order to get his green card.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So that didn't last too long. How long were they together?
3 years, 2 months. He got the green card and left.
Wow.
See ya.
See ya.
She forgave him for the financial infidelity because he said he was insecure and worried and, not sure, et cetera, and didn't have any money, didn't have his own money. She forgave him for that. But in the end, it didn't matter.
Did he leave for somebody else?
I mean, I don't know. She was
Okay.
my client. I mean, she stayed
You
with
want
my
to always
client.
know that
Yeah, well, I
doesn't
want to know
matter.
if he
What it comes down
someone
to,
else is going to suck the money out of
he
him.
used this poor woman to get a green card.
Yeah.
He didn't love her. He totally faked her out for 3 years and 2 months.
Yep.
More than that, probably because, they met prior to that. And, he said, okay, there's my sucker. And,
That's exactly what happened to her. I mean, in the end, she rebuilt stronger and
Good.
she
Okay.
did.
So Joel, if you had to tell any young couple today, right, they're just starting out, they're about to get married, what advice would you give them right out of the gate?
A lot. So number one is pay yourself first.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of having, the general public thinks, okay, I got to make sure I pay this bill or that bill, but you're the most important person. You should be paying yourself first. Put some money aside every paycheck, every month. Molly and I talk about in the book having, minimum, depending on, what your risk tolerance is, but 3 to 6 months minimum of money aside for emergency, like what we had this last year.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Have a minimum set aside, right? So pay yourself first, I think, is really important. Having the conversation about like we talk about, figure out what money personality type you are, what your partner is, and have the conversations that we have, all the exercises in the book, so you can communicate about money, because there's a lot of questions most people never ask each other. They get into the relationship, and then years later, they realize they have different values around money. So ask your partner, how did you grow up around money? What's your first money memory? How do you feel when you hear the word retirement or taxes or financial freedom? What's your response to that? And have the conversation. I think all these things are really important to do early on in a relationship. I know Molly can add another ton of things too. So go ahead, Molly.
Now wait, before Molly jumps in here, because I want Molly's opinion also. Based on your experiences, do you think having a prenuptial agreement is a good idea on how to structure all of these things?
Uh-oh.
So my opinion on that is
No, I'm actually asking Joel. So what do you think?
Oh, sorry.
It's too late for Joel. We gotta
He's
talk to
like,
Molly.
yes, prenuptial agreement for everything.
Yeah, we should have had one.
And I equate it to this. I'm a business consultant. I work with small businesses. And whenever a partnership comes to me right in the beginning, we're still in the honeymoon stage. They still like each other and everything. And that's when I say, hey, look, let's put together an operating agreement, which for all intents and purposes is a prenuptial agreement. This is how we're going to run the company. If this happens, that's what's going to happen. And this happens. Would you suggest that based on, what you're telling us tonight? Would you suggest something like that going into a marriage when it comes to
marriage,
a new marriage coming into finances?
a first marriage?
I in my life, there, and we talk, like I've actually talked about this in my last book, The 9 Money Rules Millionaires Use. Choose faith over fear. And in life, you can, on the spectrum of absolute faith, knowing that everything's going to be fine, and fear, oh my God, or massive doubt, it's definitely not going to work out. I tend to be way over here in faith, and so I have strong belief in my investments, in my relationships, and so on. So that's how I would act. I'm not saying I would advise everyone, but you have to get your belief level up high enough so that you believe in the relationship, you believe in the long-term viability of the relationship, and that it's going to last. If you're way over in fear, maybe you shouldn't actually be in the relationship and be married, because you have massive doubt that it's not going to work out. So
if I was going to get married, again, whatever it may be, I did it first time, I would not ask for a prenup. If I love you, I love you. I'm not marrying you worrying about that you're going to take X number of dollars from me. All right, that's just the way. Then I won't marry you. See, if I have that doubt, I don't marry you. We'll go out together, we'll have fun, we'll go on vacation, but I'm not going to marry you.
Right, and that's what I was trying to say.
It's forever, except for the first time.
How about you, Molly? What's your opinion on that?
I believe 100%, as Joel said, I am more faith-based than fear-based. And I did say after my, the gentleman, the husband that I wrote about in the book, the parable, I did say after him, for years, I said I wouldn't get married unless a team of attorneys was walking down the aisle in front of me. That was my go-to saying. However, as I said, I did my own personal work on myself, understanding myself, who I am as a person. We put that into the book. I learned and took the time to know who my husband is as a person, and none of that mattered. So no, I don't.
You answered the question. Joel answered the question. I answered the question. What would you do?
I wouldn't get married again.
There you go.
That's my honest opinion.
And on that note,
one more time, how somebody wants to get your book, get in touch with you guys, how can they do that?
Yeah, so the book is on Amazon, Infinite Love and Money. If you want a signed, personalized copy from Molly and myself, you can get it at salamour.com. That's SALAURMOR.com. Or email us if you want coaching. You can email me at joel@SALAURMOR.com, or Molly. Molly, you want to give your information?
Sure. You can email me at Molly, MOLLIE, at mollysing.com. That's MOLLIE at MOLLIESINGH.com.
Now, do you have any seminars before we wrap up for the evening? Do you have any seminars or meetings or workshops that are coming up shortly?
We don't have any scheduled yet.
Not over the summer. It'll be in the fall.
Well, that's coming up.
We don't have set dates yet, but thank you for asking.
Okay.
So would you guys sign my Kindle version of your book?
Absolutely.
There you go. All right, guys. Well, thank you for being on the show. You guys were great.
Great job
tonight. And just hang out a couple of minutes. We're going to say goodnight
Don't
to
go
everybody.
away.
And thanks for being on the show. You guys were fantastic. Again, that's Infinite Love and Money. I love it. It's just not everybody talks about it. Either
not together.
Oh. But you know what? That's an important ingredient. So thanks, guys, for being on the show. And we'll see you guys in a couple of minutes.
Great. That was a cool show.
That was a very cool show.
That was nice.
Yes.
I like that. That was
still
good.
Would not get married.
What's that?
I'm still never going to get married again.
Oh, that's all right. It was one and done. That's
it. One and done.
That's all. You got a nice relationship anyway.
Yeah,
you got a great relationship. You don't need to get married.
Nope, we're good. We're good.
Right,
all right. So we will see you guys tomorrow night. So we're getting 3 in this week.
And then I'll see you on Saturday at the Journey concert.
That's
for
right,
the Kiwanian Pediatric Trauma
Foundation.
Foundation. Yep.
So everybody have a great night. We will see you right
See you tomorrow.
here on the Business Power Hour at 7 p.m.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.